Welcome to Hannity. Now, today marked day 2 of President Barack Obama's trip to the Middle East. And while he chose to ignore our closest ally in the region during his entire first term, he's now trying to bridge the rather formidable divide that his reckless approach to foreign policy created between the U.S. and Israel. And to help him do just that, well, he has his teleprompters working overtime, but that could not save him because he was not greeted with pleasantries by everybody. Take a look.
I believe your future is bound to ours. Oh, no. This is part of the lively debate that we talked about. I have to say we actually arranged for that because it made me feel at home. You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable if I didn't have at least one heckler.
All right, I wonder why so many of them wouldn't be happy with you, Mr. President. Now, maybe it's because even though you're now trying to act like you're a friend of Israel, they have realized that they can't take you at your word. Now, namely because you have not paid any attention to Israel up until this week. So here's my advice. Rather than focus on the words scrolling on your teleprompters now, the Israelis, they should focus on what he's done and what he said in the past. For example, let's not forget that this president called on Israel and Palestine to withdraw to 1967 borders. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he fiercely opposed that suggestion and explained to Obama that it would result in, quote, indefensible borders. But as I've learned firsthand, when you dare to disagree with the anointed one, well, you are met with his vengeful wrath. Which brings me to the next Obama gaffe. Remember the hot mic scandal involving both he and former French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Now, you may recall that reporters once overheard the duo trashing Prime Minister Netanyahu. Remember, Sarkozy said, quote, Netanyahu, I can't stand him. He's a liar. To which Obama responded, quote, well, you're sick of him, but I have to work with him every day. Now, it's unclear to me what the president meant by every day because I kind of lost count of how many times he refused to meet with his Israeli counterpart. Now, the most recent snub came during the 2012 campaign when the White House turned down Netanyahu's request to meet with Obama during the UN General Assembly in New York. And while aides were claiming that a scheduling conflict prevented the sit-down, well, I couldn't help but notice that the president was able to find time to share a few laughs with good old liberal David Letterman on that visit. But none of this should surprise us, because we cannot forget that when this president first stepped foot in the Oval Office, remember, he began apologizing to the world for America, by the way, to Israel's detriment. You may remember this.
America, like every other nation, has made mistakes and has its flaws. In America, there's a failure to appreciate Europe's leading role in the world. Instead of celebrating your dynamic union and seeking to partner with you to meet common challenges, there have been times where America has shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive.
9/11 was an enormous trauma to our country. The fear and anger that it provoked was understandable. But in some cases, it led us to act contrary to our traditions and our ideals. We are taking concrete actions to change course. I have unequivocally prohibited the use of torture by the United States, and I have ordered the prison at Guantanamo Bay closed by early next year. While the United States has done much to promote peace and prosperity in the hemisphere, we've at times been disengaged, and at times we've sought to dictate our terms.
Just pathetic, and the bad judgment of Obama and the administration was on full display earlier today. Look at this during a joint press conference with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. There's Obama standing below an enormous banner showing a picture of the man that many, including me, believe to be the father of modern terrorism. There it is, Yasser Arafat. Now, what message does that send to the Middle East when the leader of the free world is willing to stand in the shadows of that monster? All right, joining me now with reaction to talk about this, syndicated radio and television talk show host, a great American himself, Billy Cunningham is here, and Fox News contributor Joe Trippi. Joe Trippi, welcome back.
Good to be with you, Sean.
You know, Joe, from my perspective, I don't think things could be any worse in the Middle East. And now we've got a president that, and we'll show this in the next segment with Rudy Giuliani, remember he covered the cross at Georgetown? Remember, we got to cover the cross. But he speaks under a picture of a terrorist Arafat, and he's funding a terrorist regime led by a terrorist that thinks the Israelis are descendants of apes and pigs in Egypt. Help me, Joe. Is that acceptable foreign policy in your mind?
Well, Sean, look, Ehud Barak, the Prime Minister of Israel, and Bill Clinton met with Arafat at Camp David, and there's plenty of pictures of them doing that.
Is he a terrorist? Was he a terrorist?
You can't do. Well, it doesn't matter whether he was or not. You have to deal with. If you're going to have peace, you have to work with both parties. You don't have to like both parties.
Okay. So
you'll
cover the cross, but you'll speak under a picture of Arafat.
You know,
all right, I'm just checking what his priorities are.
We were meeting with a boss on their turf in their presidential arena.
All right, but I want to.
If you come to the White House, if you come to the White House and meet with our president, and you don't like the fact that George Washington's sitting over
but George Washington
the
is
desk,
not a terrorist. Is Yasser Arafat?
Well, actually, I think the British probably thought he was.
Was he a terrorist?
Of course he was, but the British probably thought George Washington was a terrorist.
If I was President Billy Cunningham, I wouldn't speak under a picture of a terrorist.
Sean Hannity, we wondered what would a second Jimmy Carter term look like. We now know. There was a line in North Korea. Don't cross the line. Nuclear bombs are going off on North Korea. You have the revolution happening in Egypt, to whom we give hundreds of millions of dollars, when the leader compares Jews to snakes and the vomit of pigs. You have our heroes and our diplomats being killed in Benghazi without any discernible impact. He's drawn another line in Iran. Guess what? Talk to the North Koreans what happened when the Nobel Prize peace winner draws a line. The answer is nothing, and 100,000 or more Syrians have been killed, and Obama is fiddling as Damascus is burning, and that's a foreign policy? Joe Trippi, you got to be kidding me.
That's some really good stuff, man. Look,
it is.
I just think
It's true.
It's not. It's not. We've got a guy. Look, the president has under his leadership, $3 billion has been in aid to Israel, to their defense systems there. $275 million for the Iron Dome missile defense system.
Let me ask you a question, Joe Trippi.
No, we've done every step of the way. We've been there to defend them, and he said that he won't let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
They don't have one yet. Is it a mistake to give the former terrorist head of the Muslim Brotherhood, Mohammed Morsi, F-16s, tanks, and $1.5 billion taxpayer dollars? Is that a mistake, Joe Trippi?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mistake or not.
I think it's a mistake. Joe, what do you think, Bill Cunningham?
Obvious.
Sean, look at this. We can't afford sixth graders on spring break going through the White House, and we ship terrorists like Mohammed Morsi hundreds of millions of dollars, tanks and F-16s. They're going to use them to kill Israelis. We're supplying the weapons to kill Israelis, and that's the Nobel Peace Prize winner.
That's one way to look at it, Bill. On the other hand, it's been Egypt and the enforcement of the peace agreement with Egypt
that was under
Egyptian
Hosni
government.
Mubarak.
Right. And what we know is so far the Muslim Brotherhood has kept that in place.
No. Whoa. Stop for a second. The Muslim Brotherhood, when they first took over the parliament, the first thing they did is declare Israel their #1 enemy. This is before we've done this. Now, wait a minute.
Have they attacked Israel yet, Sean?
No, because there are too many internal problems. But if he consolidates his power, implements Sharia, which he's now doing, we're giving money to a committed terrorist who is not. He's not rescinded his words that the Israelis are descendants of apes and pigs. This is insanity, Joe Trippi.
By now, according to you guys, we would have been attacked by Iran with nuclear missiles.
We're giving them the weapons that puts Israel in jeopardy.
Because the president's talking with Iran, that's not good enough.
Well,
it's the same thing.
Let me ask you a question.
We have a relationship with Egypt. So far, they haven't attacked anybody, and we're going to depend on that government, whether we like that government or not, to help us have peace
if Obama
and
won't
protect Israel.
Speak underneath the cross at Georgetown, but he'll speak underneath who you acknowledge as a terrorist, Yasser Arafat. What if he spoke under a picture of bin Laden? Is there any difference between bin Laden and Yasser Arafat?
If we're trying to create peace somewhere,
it would be
and
okay
we're meeting with a leader, Sean,
apparently.
you have to have,
apparently.
Yeah, right, it's all right with me, Sean. No,
over
what
my
I'm
dead
saying
body
is
if I was president. Billy Cunningham, last word.
You cannot pick who you're meeting with.
Yeah,
when you're trying to create peace.
Yeah, I would. I would not speak under the picture of a terrorist.
Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat gave birth to Osama bin Laden. In the 70s and 80s, he was the scientist of most terrorism in the Islamic world. Arafat. And to have our president underneath a terrorist like that disgusts me. Crucifixes are bad. Arafat's okay with Obama.
All right, when we come back, thank you both. Rudy Giuliani.